Cool. Kia ora, Paul. Welcome to the podcast.
Good to be here.
Awesome to have a local. And we just heard that this is your first ever podcast. So you're making the debut on Beyond the Surface, which I feel pretty special about.
Yeah, it's good to be here. I love listening to podcasts, so it's nice to be on the other end for once.
Cheers, mate. There's lots I want to unpack with your story, obviously being the founder and now director of Moana Rd.
Yeah.
Through that, you've been a teacher. You've taught economics at Wellington College.
Yeah,
that was right.
Aotearoa College and Wellington College, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm keen to rewind sort of back to the start around your childhood and what maybe gave you those entrepreneurial traits that you have today.
So my family have a chain of stores called Ballentyne's.
Okay.
So right from when I was nipper, Dad had one store, and over my life it's built up to 20, I think it peaked at about 27 stores. So he's definitely a businessman and someone I've looked up to. And so business has always been in our family. So, as a kid we were opening shops and working in the warehouse and watching that grow and expand. And I just feel like it was always in my blood. Like I was always like looking for golf balls and selling them and making juice and I was always doing something to try and make some money on the side. Just definitely in my blood. My father, my granddad, the same as well. So, yeah, it was always something I wanted to do, really.
Is that like a natural knack that you've had? Was that something that your dad was like, hey, come on, Paul, here's an idea, you could sell, juice or whatever?
He's a bit of a workaholic, and he was pretty focused on what he was doing. So it was, he wasn't like he was really mentoring me, I wouldn't say, but mentoring me as in I was watching him all the time and seeing what they're doing, and it was part of what we did. So, but I think it's if you're an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur, and it's just you can't get away from it almost, And whatever I end up doing, I was always going back to doing a business again, So it's like if you're a musician, probably you're just going to pick up a guitar and start playing.
Yeah. That's so true. What was the sort of pivotal moment for you when you were at college or high school, and then you were thinking, should I go to university? Should I work? Should I set up my own business? What was that sort of thought process for you as a young fella?
I think it's hard for young entrepreneurs because you finish school and you want to get into business, but you've got no money and you've got no actual skills because you haven't done a trade or anything. And I feel like young entrepreneurs are often a bit lost when they leave school. And so I was probably a wee bit like that. And I actually started a business called Mr. Pinger. It was like a surf brand for a couple of years in like 92, 93, selling polar fleece tops and all sorts of things. Some people might remember it, but after 2 years I kind of felt like I'm never really going to be able to compete with big Aussie brands. So I went off to university and studied marketing. But yeah, I feel like it probably wanted to be in business but didn't really know how to get into business.
Yeah, that makes sense. With Mr. Pinger, how big did that company get?
Not very big. Like we were just doing like markets, and there was no online back then. So just selling. Actually, I used to sell out on like the street in Manners Mall.
True.
It was Manners Mall back then. Now it's Manners Street, isn't it?
Yeah.
We just out the back of an old Holden Kingswood, music festivals, all that sort of thing. It was pretty grassroots, but definitely gave me a bit of a taste for trading, which I liked.
And when you first started doing that, was there an understanding for you, like this is the path I want to go forward with my life around doing my own sort of stuff around entrepreneurial? Yeah.
It's always been in my head. I want to be in business, but it was kind of just how to get to that point. So I felt like I went and did a business degree that's going to help me, and I did the one at Massey, which is BBS, which is quite good for learning quite a wide range of skills in business. So you do law and economics, and accounting, and all that. So that was good. And while I was at university, actually, we used to hitchhike down south and buy old Holden Kingswoods and Valiants and then drive them up and sell them to the rugby heads and sort of double our money. So we had this trade of old cars. So again, another thing going on in the background, making a buck.
Yeah. Always just a hustler then.
Yeah. I just love, like working for someone and just having a wage just doesn't do it for me. I definitely want to always be. Because the thing I love about being in business is the freedom it creates.
Yeah.
Like if I want to go for a surf or want to go and play golf for the afternoon or whatever, perhaps I can do that if you're in business for yourself.
Totally. It's and someone who's on the 9 to 5 corporate rat race like myself, it can be so soul destroying. Even just catching like public transport, heading into town for work.
Yeah.
Like you're sitting there, everybody on that train is just miserable. They just look like half of them are asleep.
Yeah.
And sometimes I look across everyone's faces, just glued onto their phones and stuff. I'm like, is this really all there is to life? Like, just being to the mercy of your employer.
Yeah, that's just my worst nightmare.
Yeah,
So that's why teaching, because I ended up doing teaching, and teaching was quite good because I actually started properly developing on the side in teaching. But teaching, you get a lot of free time. I mean, I guess you're supposed to be there all night preparing lessons, but I wasn't. So I was sort of doing like subdivisions and developing houses on the side.
Okay.
While I was teaching commerce, but teaching go in the classroom, shut the door, and it's your world. You can do it how you want to do.
Yeah, true.
And so I love the autonomy of it, and it's kind of like quite a nice halfway house. So I love the years teaching. I loved, had 5 years at Wellington College, and it was an awesome experience, but definitely came to an end, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. But
What would you say to like a young person listening, or somebody wanting to start their own business, who might be, in high school or wherever they are in life? What would you say to them just to like pick it up and really give it a go?
I think it's a good idea to have a trade. And when I say trade, I don't mean a builder or a sparky. I mean a trade is a nurse, a lawyer, an accountant. Because when you're in business, it goes wrong, and it went wrong for me in GFC. So I could keep flicking back to teaching. So I think having a trade's good. Then plus you also are an expert, or you're knowledgeable of an area. So if things go wrong, you're not going to go back to minimum wage, but you're going to go back to the wage you'll be paid for that skill. So I think it's good to have a trade, and then it's a case of like finding a niche to get into. Where's there? The world's always changing. Like every day, the world's changing and changing. It's not the same, and because whenever there's a change, there's an opportunity. So to think, there's that saying in that late 1890 or something, they shut the patent office because they thought everything had been designed. And obviously since then there's been a few leap forward. So there's always an opportunity. Things are always changing. There's always a niche you can get into.
Yeah.
And if you're small, yes, you don't have the clout of a big corporate, but you can move really quickly. And do things and see gaps and opportunities. So my advice for a young person would be to look for those opportunities and gaps and see whether you can have a crack. And don't be scared. Don't be afraid to humble yourself and sell on a street corner, or sell at a market, or do the yards on Trade Me, because that's what you need to get going. So,
and how do you personally, Paul? Like, how do you look and find opportunities or gaps into what there are? Is it like having your finger on the pulse around what sort of trends are coming up, or what might be missing? Like, how do you do that personally as an entrepreneur?
I think as an entrepreneur, you're always looking, and you're watching everything and seeing what's going on. And often you'll go to, like, sunglasses, for example, are really our biggest product. There's always the cheap, crappy petrol station sunnies, and there's always the expensive ones, but there's never ones in the middle. That were good quality, good styles, New Zealand brands. So it's kind of like you see a gap, and you try and fill it. So my biggest strength probably would be the product development. So we've been in our product range from Ugg boots to headphones to like just
doing everything.
Everything. It's like 30, 40 page catalogue now. So it's just finding those little niches where something's missing. There's nothing's been done in that space and getting into it.
Yeah. If we fast forward then to 2008 when you set up Moana Rd, so that's where the global financial crisis was going on. Can you just talk through a bit around that year and what the sort of thought pattern was leading up to starting the empire that is Moana Rd?
Yeah, so I was a property developer, and I got my butt kicked so hard.
Really?
And so, about 4 or 5 of my best mates. So we basically all nearly lost everything.
Shit.
And we were all kind of like had young families at the time. I had 3 kids, 4th on the way, and I owed $2 million at 10% interest rates, and I didn't have a job, and my wife was home with babies. So,
talk about pressure.
Yeah, well, so for 6 months, I don't think I slept. I slept, but I didn't sleep well, and probably still got a few mental health scars from that.
Yeah.
It was a horrendous time, and really just came to the point where you just had to realise, well, we could lose everything and be all right with that and have a peace about that. So, but then I sort of went back relief teaching, and I was trying to work out what's my next step, and I've always wanted to be an importer, And I was on Alibaba having a search around, and I was talking to my brother who works for the family business, and he said, if you're importing it, you've got to find something that people can't copy. And then a friend of mine said to me that in China they can paint your pictures, they can oil paint your pictures. So I thought, what about if I took photos in New Zealand and got them oil painted? And so I was sitting in the back of classrooms at Aotearoa College and thinking this could give this a little go, because if I get my own designs for my photos, they can't be copied because it'll be my images.
Yeah.
And that's how it started, really. That was the first little step.
How did you make the connection from New Zealand into China? Like, what was that relationship? Do you have any connections there or networks already?
No, well, this guy who mentioned it to me lives in China, to be honest. But Alibaba was fully roaring at that stage. So Alibaba was such an awesome way to make connections. So I literally took 3 pictures, and it was like a railway cottage in Nio, the Tite Bay boat sheds. I can't remember what the third one was. And I got them oil painted and air freighted over. I actually think if I write a book, I'd call it 3 paintings, because that's how it started. I literally got 3 paintings, air freighted over, I framed them and I sold them. And then I got 10 paintings, and then I framed them and sold them.
And just keep going, keep flipping it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every time I did a new order, I went, people seem to like this or like that, and it morphed and changed. And because there's a gap back, how it started was I thought there's a bit of a gap for art. Like you can get really awful art and you can get really expensive art, but there's nothing kind of affordable that people like. So it started as oil paintings. Yeah.
And who was buying them over in China?
No, so they were oil painted in China.
Oh, oil painted in China.
Sent here, and we'd buy the timber here, and I've been on YouTube, learnt how to frame a picture, bought an air compressor, and like my kids were real little at that stage, and they could just hear an air compressing nail gun going off in the garage, putting these frames together and stretching the canvas over the frames, and just started like Trade Me. I literally did the fruit markets, Aotearoa has a fruit market. I remember sitting up at like 5 in the morning in the middle of winter next to guys selling bananas and apples. I have these oil paintings of like Kiwiana shots and scenic shots and kind of a random mix. But I think that's, you got to be humble and go, this is an opportunity. There's people walking around with money. Give it a go, So, and some people, I feel like sometimes young people today are like, they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that kind of yards where you go
from the humble beginnings.
Yeah. Like just get out there and try and sell the thing. And we did music festivals. We did like in Coromandel, these 10 markets in 14 days over New Year's.
Yeah,
and that's really hard work. And I just double bounced my 3rd kid and broken her arm. So and we had to re-break it 3 times.
Shit.
Just for
True
Christmas.
Story.
I think we just had our 4th, and then I had to go and do these 10 fairs in 14 days, and I took my oldest girl, Georgia, with me, and we did these 10 fairs and, to do a couple of thousand a day.
Yeah.
And, so getting out there. But the key thing is with all that, as you're growing, is going, what do they like, what do they don't like, keep changing, keep tweaking it. And we end up with this range of basically scenic shots in New Zealand, Kiwiana, and we got into doing historic shots of from the Turnbull Library. We got all these old photos, and we did these because when I was getting quotes for oil paintings, I found a company gave me a really cheap quote, and it was for prints, and so I started getting prints over and framing those, and then it basically all became all about prints really rather than the oil paintings.
True that.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And then we did like 18 pop-up shops over 2 years.
Wow.
Because of the GFC was raging, there was a lot of empty stores, so you could get shops in like Lambton Quay and downtown Queen Street in Auckland for the cheapest chips, and you could just go and hang up these big pictures and start trading. And
I'm super fascinated at like the thought decision around being $2 million in debt at that time, 10% interest rates, and then be like, hey, cool, I'm gonna go around this path, not flipping property, but selling off oil paintings, and like you mixing your passion and your blend for photography and Kiwiana. Yeah. What was your wife sort of panicking at that, or yourself, being like, what if this doesn't work? Did you put all your eggs into that basket?
Well, I was relief teaching, and I relief taught. There was a teacher at Aotearoa College called Richard Gale, and he basically gave me work every day of the year, right through the very end, even when the seniors had left and all that.
Shout out Richard.
He really looked after me, I'll never forget him. And so we had this kind of income, which was going back to what I said about having a trade,
Yeah, something to fall back on.
Yeah, so getting $1,000 a week, so it's something to live on. and having that bit of extra time because you're finishing at 3:30 or whatever, and going home and getting cracking on the next thing. But yeah, pretty much in a hole because with the $2 million. And the thing was with the GFC, you couldn't give away a house. No one wanted a house.
No,
Like,
no one was buying.
Doesn't matter what the price was, you're not going to sell it. So we had like 7 properties, you had to rent them out. And over time, interest rates came down and then they all got rented out. And after a year and a half, they hit break even. And it slowly got better. But, you know, and I feel like in the next year, we're probably going to see a bit of that in the current market with the residential property collapse. So if there's any young guys out there who are developers, I've been there where you've been.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. So if we go back to where you're at the moment with the story, when did you make the decision to sort of branch out from doing these oil paintings to like the prints to doing additional products?
Yeah. So we had this massive day where I got up at like 4 a.m. and drove to the Moana Rd fair. The Moana Rd fair is one of the biggest fairs in the country. Sold in the 30-degree heat till about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Did like $5,000, so I was really stoked. Packed up the car, drove to Auckland from Moana Rd, which is like 8 or 9 hours. Got there about 9 o'clock. Set up to do a wholesaling trade fair. So this is where all the New Zealand retailers turn up to buy their stock, and that goes for 3 days, and that really flopped. And I sort of after that trade fair, I'm like, because I always wanted to wholesale so you can multiply what you're doing, you know, rather than just what you can sell. And after that fair, I was like, well, wholesaling pictures is tough because they take up lots of space in shops.
Yeah.
So, you can make money out of it, but it's a tough gig. And then I thought, well, what about starting to put the images onto things that are smaller that you can wholesale? So, like, like tea towels and placemats and things. And then someone told me about the Canton Fair in China. So I'm actually going there on Wednesday, this Wednesday, which is the first time since 2019. But I went over to the Canton Fair, and I knew nothing about it. Like, I turned up and I literally saw these guys at a railway station, these American guys, and I said, oh, you're going to the Canton Fair? And I jumped over the rail and jumped in the cab and off went to this Canton Fair. So Canton Fair is like 5 Westpac stadiums, 3 stories tall, 100,000 people go through, every country in the world. And there's just all the factories in China setting up, showing you their wares. And so I wandered around trying to find, you know, things that I could put my images that I'd proven were successful onto products. And the first hit product we had was the Scrabble, these little magnetic Scrabble tiles. We must have sold 500,000 of these things in New Zealand. And that was our biggest hit. So yeah, just started going up to China and went to a fair in India, and we were going to China 2 or 3 times a year to these fairs, and taking what I'd learnt from the 2 years of hustling these pictures and trying to make smaller products that you could wholesale.
So, and going to the markets in China was really like a learning process to see what sort of materials there were. Yeah,
so I mean, there's nearly everything that's in any shop in New Zealand will be at these fairs. You know, they're absolutely massive. But you walk around and you literally walk 15 k's a day because we measure it. And for those 8 hours of walking, 99% of it's just junk, just tacky, terrible stuff. But then you'll see something that'll catch your eye and think, oh, that's quite cool. But my mind will start racing. I'm pretty sure I'm ADHD, which a lot of entrepreneurs are. I'll see something and I'll be like, oh, if we change that and put this design on, and So I'd come back from China with all these ideas, and so one of the key things about Moana Rd is we have, we don't do anything unless we get a mandate to do it. So I never go to China and go, I really want to do gumboots.
Yeah.
And I'll start doing it. I come back with all these ideas, and I'm always asking people. I'm always putting out market research to my retailers, to my friends, my family. Even just 30 people, you'll see a trend straight away. So I've been doing that since day one, so we don't do a product unless we get a mandate for it. And I bring back products from overseas, and my staff will be like, they just roast me. Like, I get so mocked about some of the ideas. But that's fine, because you've got to go through that to get to these little winning gems. So we might bring back 100 ideas, and it whittles down to 20, and then we might get 15, and we might get samples made, and then we'll take them to our trade fairs in New Zealand. So yeah, it's a process that we go through.
That's really cool. So you got the finger on the pulse with what your customers and what I guess the people of New Zealand and around the world, essentially, from your customer base, really enjoy and like what they'll like to consume.
Yeah. So I mean, like our customers, I texted 10 of our biggest retailers in New Zealand on Friday, and to ask them what percentage of our customers are female, and it's about 80%. So I'm 49. What would a 49-year-old bloke know what that woman want to buy? It's absurd to think that I'd know. So by asking them, I'm going to have a way better chance of having success, right? So, I'll bring back a whole lot of options and then put it to them, and then they literally vote. And it's not this high-tech market research thing where I have Colmar Brunton do it or anything. It's literally just, here's 50 ideas. Tell me what your favourite 10 are.
Yeah.
To 30 to 50 people, and I have a little tally marks in my diary, and I go, right, after 50, I can see these 10 are winners. Because I'm not aiming for like people who live in Oriental Parade, the high end or the low end. I'm aiming for the big chunk, the big middle New Zealand.
Yeah.
I call it the Whitby or the Tawa.
Yeah.
And because that's where most people are in New Zealand. Because New Zealand's only 5 million, I need volume. I want to do volume. I'm not a niche product, not boutique. So I always let the people say. They tell me what to do.
There's such a smart way of doing things. What about when things haven't quite worked, where you might have got, I'm sure there's been examples where you've got a big order from overseas, think it would be a massive hit over here, and then it just has not landed.
So because we do the mandate, we have a really high strike rate. But as you say, there will always be a couple of flops. So how do we clear the flops? We've done things like one day deals to get rid of the stuff. I've actually got about 5 retailers who are clearance stores, who I'll put stock through to clear off as well. But like this summer, we set up these clearance stores, and then I ran all the numbers through our reporting system, and there was literally nothing that wasn't selling this summer. It's been really busy. And it proves that mandate works, So, you've just got to find a way to move it, basically.
Yeah. Get it out.
Yeah.
What's been like the funniest product which you think you have, which you guys have sold on that you just didn't think would be a thing, but it actually is?
Funniest product? Well, I got in trouble once for doing tiki salt and pepper shakers.
Yeah.
So I was at the Auckland Museum trying to sell them these tiki salt and pepper shakers, and the lady, must have been coming like 10 years ago now, she said to me, "Oh, you realise you can't put food in a tiki shape?" And it was kind of like so I first realised, you have to be careful with this whole Māori thing in products. So that was like a bit of a wentworth, and we had to go away and learn from that. And I feel like we have, and we've been on a real journey since that with our Māori products.
Yeah. And that must be a big part of Moana Rd, right? Because you guys are Kiwiana in the purest essence of the word, embedding that sort of te ao Māori, tikana sort of approach across your products, making sure that that's really authentic. Has that just been an opportunity for you just to really listen and understand a bit more around what that culture is and how to work with it? Yeah.
So I'm Pākehā, and we wanted to do it right, and it's been a journey. And I think there's sort of 3 things that we have done to try and make that journey right. So first of all, we've got a cultural advisor. So a Māori lady helps us. If we had a product, we'll put it to her, and she'd say, "Oh, yes, no, maybe change it." And then we decided like we wouldn't do any. From now on, we won't design any Māori products. We've got an artist called Midi Grace Smith, who's a very contemporary young Māori artist from out these ways, and she does all our Māori products now, and it's been a massive hit having her do that. And then we supply a couple of shops in Christchurch called Hapa, which is Tiki Tane's sister, Maureen Hapa, and she said, like, you're doing it all well, but the last thing you need to do is you need to put something back into your local iwi, which is Ngāti Toa. So we decided, rather than, we thought the best way for us to put back into our local iwi is to impart what we've learnt. And so we run a 6-week course once a year where budding artists or business people who have ideas from that iwi can come to us for free and have a half-day session for 6 weeks. Super. Where basically I tell them everything I've learnt. Like, I know there's no holds barred. I just tell them everything I've learnt, and then as the course goes on, we go through the design process and social media, and then they start bringing their ideas in, and then we help them develop their ideas, and then from there, if we can get another Midi Grace Smith, then we can add that to the collection. So from last year's one, we got a guy called Herman Saltzman, who's a Pukekohe Bay carver, and he came up with the idea of doing these solar lights in his carvings, which we're just developing in China at the moment.
Super cool. Yeah,
so it's been an interesting journey to get from being told off at the Auckland Museum.
Yeah, led to this.
Through to, I feel like we're doing a way better job of it, and because the reason why we want to do Māori, for me, a couple of reasons. But one is that, like for me, te reo is what makes New Zealand different in Australia or anywhere in the world, right?
Totally.
And so I love, like, we have te reo on a lot of our products, and what it separates a New Zealand product from an Australian product, because we're always competing with, like Kmart's not on our level, but Kmart designers in Australia, it's an Australian company, isn't it? They're designing products for the Australian market, and then they just chuck it in the New Zealand market. Like I was in there the other day, and there's a kangaroo jumping over a desert. Like, it's got nothing to do with New Zealand. So we can compete with that giant by going, well, Kiwis don't want a kangaroo on a desert, but what they do want is to see our culture. And so
it's a unique fingerprint in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so passionate about that. And what did I say before that? I was the reasons why we do the Māori stuff. Yes, we're trying to create something unique, and I want to promote te reo. And those two things have meant that we really want to move forward with that, but we had to learn to do it properly and not offend people and put back into our local iwi and give back what we're trying to take. So I feel like we've got kind of a formula that's working.
Yeah, that course sounds awesome. What a cool way just to give back to the community as well.
Yeah. And we had great fun with them last year. It was a good time, and we're looking forward to doing it again this year.
That's super cool. With the growth of Moana Rd, like you go down the street in Wellington, Cuba Street, wherever you are, you could even be in Hawke's Bay or Taupo, you're going to see Moana Rd sunnies.
Yeah.
You're going to see some sort of Moana Rd, items or products.
Yeah.
Along the way, how did you manage the growth of the company escalating, I'm assuming, pretty fast with last year, selling over 500 products? What is that sort of journey been like, actually managing shit? Like, things are getting really, really busy. I
think because I went through the GFC and nearly went bankrupt, I've been quite cautious, and some businesses, you hear them say, "Oh, we've borrowed 2 million and we'll break even in 8 years." Like, I never had that luxury. It's like I needed to pay these mortgages and I needed to feed my family from day one. So it's like sell and make profit, and then reinvest, sell and make profit. So there was no waiting 2 or 3 years.
Sink or swim.
Yeah, so really, to manage the growth, I had to get in the right people. We've got a great team of people who we've brought in along the way. We've had heaps of students over the years working with us, like even old students that I used to teach, a lot of them. But getting the right people has been massive, and just having a go at things. Like, I think if you're an entrepreneur, you can't say, "Oh, I don't know computers, I can't do it." Like, if you have to have a website, you got to work it out, and so all the facets, the accounting. Because when you're little, you're doing everything, right? You're making the product, selling the product, doing the books. As you get bigger, you get the luxury of going, actually, I don't want to do the GST anymore. I don't want to do the payroll. And you can bring in people to do the bits you don't like. And then you get to do the bits that you do like. And normally those are the bits that you're actually quite good at.
Yeah.
So as it's growing, just keep bringing in people. So we have 4 designers now working on our different products. Because before I was kind of having a bit of a hack at it, and now it's done way, way better. So that's awesome to have that luxury. But just bringing in good people, at the right time, without putting the company in the edge of bankruptcy. So always having the payroll and cash flow to pay it.
What's the biggest risk that you've taken with the business to date, and has that risk paid off?
So, I said we got 3 paintings and we sold them. And we got 10 paintings and we sold them. It's been like that the whole way through. It hasn't really felt risky. When I was property developing, you're literally spending $1 million, whatever, to do a project, hoping it'll sell. But when you're doing small little products and you're starting little and you're just slowly getting bigger and bigger and bigger, it's never felt like a risk. Now we've got a 800 square meter warehouse in Aotearoa full of products, and I never feel like it's risky at all, because the figures that you have, the history of sales is so consistent and growing, that, and even through COVID, we still, like the COVID year 2020, we were flat, but apart from that, we've grown at nearly 30% every single year. Just keeps growing, so it doesn't feel risky. Yeah,
that makes sense. I'm also really interested to hear what has been like the sales journey, essentially getting all your retailers on board. So you've got 900 retailers in 10 countries.
Yeah.
What's that process been like to get them signed up?
So I think we've done a lot of our retailers will come through trade fairs. So New Zealand has 3 trade fairs for our industry. So setting up and showing your products, and it's kind of a case of, to get going, you need these little champion products to get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
And then once you get the foot in the door, you'll get more and more space in your stores. So it's something you've got to earn the respect and the position in the stores. So it's going that it doesn't happen overnight, but gradually, I see what we started with those Scrabble tiles, those magnets, and now we've got like 53 stores with like island stands, like 2.4 metre long island stands covered in, and then bag stands and sunglass spinner stands. And so it starts little and it slowly gets bigger and bigger. So to get into those stores, the key thing is that you're always giving them products that sell. So if I've given them products for 8 years that have sold and I show them another 10, they're probably going to go, well, I like those 7, but those 3 don't work for us. But they get a lot of confidence in what I'm doing. And so it's just something that you can't do overnight, but you build up this kind of, they trust, who we are and what we do. So, and our retailers, a lot of the time they're not ordering like, if we did, like these caps, they're not going to say, oh, we'll take 100 of those caps. They literally will be like, I'll have 3 of each colour. So it's a lot of retailers buying a little bit, and if those 9 caps don't sell, they won't reorder them. So it's not a big risk for them.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, it's just been a case of it just growing slowly and getting more and more of a foothold. But we've been really conscious about our brand the whole time. Yeah. So a lot of our competition don't really have a strong brand, and I thought, because I sort of grew up in that world where, I think it was Vision Streetwear was the first company to put the label on the back of the shirt, your little tag. And so I grew up in that kind of that skateboarding and surfing world where the brand became really important. And I think the generation older than me is into that. And so, like at the trade fairs, their company's called something like, Aotearoa Holdings or something boring like that. Whereas we come along with, no, we're Moana Rd, and this is our brand, and we're going to push the brand. And the stronger your brand gets, the more momentum you get, the more power you get in your space. So we've been really big on pushing Moana Rd as a brand. Yeah.
How have you done that? Is there do you have any particular sort of strategy when it comes to your marketing?
We sponsor a lot of events.
Yeah.
So, in the last couple of weeks, we did this massive youth camp in Mystery Creek with 3,000 kids. We did the Wellington College run-a-thon. So we give them, like, Wellington College, we give them about 1,300 T-shirts and 300 hoodies, and they're all printed up with Moana Rd. And I mentor the kids at the school how they run the run-a-thon. So we were forever just getting behind, especially cool things that, because we got this new kaupapa for our brand. It's called We Love This Place. So not only do we enjoy New Zealand, but we want to love it and care for it and the people. So, like we've got behind like things like Live for More in the Bay of Plenty, which teach like at-risk kids surfing and get them into water. And so we did 100 towel hoodies for them with their brand on for free. And so we've got heaps of things like that all around the country where we're passionate about. And I remember I had a guy rang me and said, he was trying to sell space in the rugby magazine. I can't remember what it's called now. Do you want to run an ad in the rugby magazine? And I was like, who runs ads anymore? I'm not running an ad. I've never run an ad. I've never paid for a radio ad or a TV or newspaper, but we just pump heaps of money into events all the time. And every time we do, we got our branding all over it. So, and especially like, events like we've got behind Surf Life Saving, and there's all these healthy kids running around with towel hoodies and hats on with Moana Rd on who are looking after the community and doing their sport, and they look healthy and young, and it's such a great thing to be attached to. So that's where all our marketing dollars have gone.
I guess as well with those sort of sponsorship events, it's the way you're making people feel as well. It's like you're helping provide like an experience to them. Yeah,
totally. So our products, Love This Place. Also, we want products that help people enjoy what we're doing. So like sunglasses is a great example. Like, you're having a beautiful day at the beach in New Zealand, and you've got some good sunnies on, you're going to enjoy it more. You've got a towel hoodie, you've got some jandals on or a hat. So we have products that celebrate our culture, but products that just help you just enjoy being in New Zealand. So when we sponsor an event, it's always sort of products that are going to be used in that activity or whatever they're doing. But we're not a surf brand, and we're not a skateboard brand, and we're not a fishing brand. But our logo, this is the logo here with the Monga and the Moana. We want to celebrate whatever Kiwis are doing from the top of the Monga to the bottom of the Moana. So if you're diving, fishing, playing golf, surfing, whatever. We want to provide products that will help you enjoy that experience.
That's super nice. And for those people just listening, Paul has got a nice Moana Rd cap and some classic Moana Rd sunnies just on the table right here. I'm really keen to go back to the sunnies. These are your biggest sellers, right?
Yeah.
Your most popular products.
Yeah.
What was like the catalyst with launching sunglasses in NZ? I know you mentioned there was like, premium sort of sunwear and then the really cheap ones at like petrol stations, servos, etc. We just like, stuff it. I'm going to go for that sort of mid, because they're so affordable. They're such good quality. Just keen to understand how these sort of got set up.
Yeah, so I was actually at a trade fair and I picked up this pair of sunnies, and it was like our biggest selling style is just the classic Wayfarer style, and it had wooden arms but plastic frames. And so at that stage there were 100% wooden sunnies, but they looked always a bit like 3D sunnies. They were a bit ugly. They were quite thick around the frames, and these were kind of half and half. And I thought that's quite a good idea because it's kind of got that environmental friendly factor. It's not too expensive because it's only half wood, and it's a different angle on it. And so I bought back like 7 samples and we took them to a trade fair, and it wasn't really huge because our retailers don't typically sell sunglasses, but it was enough sales to go, let's give it a little nudge. And so yeah, we just started with just that, with the wooden bamboo sides, and it just took off. Like they've been so popular. We still, I think we sell like 85,000 pairs a year.
Crazy.
Of sunnies, and now we do everything from kids to readers, fashion, hunting, tradies, and there's like 130 SKUs now of sunglasses. But they're not expensive. They're only like $40, but they're all polarized. Like they get tested in Australia, so they're all good quality. And it just had a. I think in business sometimes you just need to dip your toe in because you don't really know how it's going to go. Like, so we might have ordered 300 pairs for our first shipment, and it could have been a flop, but it fired. And I think in business you need to keep trying things, and don't be scared to fail. And I'll have to clear off those 300 sunnies. But sometimes people like have these ideas but are too scared to give it a go. And I think you just got to keep dipping your toe in, try this. Yeah. And you might fail a few times, but then you might succeed. And I never would have thought that there was a gap in the market for sunglasses like there is.
It's crazy, right? Every man and his dog has got some Moana Rd sunnies. Yeah. Are you even a New Zealander if you don't have one? Well, that's the real question, I think.
Yeah. Well, I still walk around New Zealand sometimes and I don't see them, and I think there's still work to do.
Yeah. Is it surreal going if you're traveling across the country and you see people wearing your products? I assume that must take a bit of sort of getting used to.
Well, we've been going about 15 years now. So I think when I'm going around New Zealand and I see it, like a mate of mine was in Aussie and he walked into a shop and there was Moana Rd and he sent me a photo. And I feel like sometimes my mates around, especially around Aotearoa, think that Moana Rd's just in Aotearoa, and they see it overseas and they, oh my gosh, Moana Rd's in the Gold Coast or whatever. So that's surreal when you start seeing it overseas. Like we were sitting around a pool in Bali and this couple walked in and they were Australian and they were wearing Moana Rd sunglasses. So it's a buzz. Like I love that. I love succeeding. I quite like sport, so I'm not necessarily like great at sport, but I love the game and competing and trying to get better at something. And for me, business is just a game. Yeah. And that's what gutted me when the GFC hit. I was out of the game. Like we're all playing Monopoly and suddenly, nah, Paul, you're not playing anymore. Get lost. That was real tough because I love it. It's fun,
Yeah. I also want to speak to you about pressure, and obviously with the business growing so big, additionally you also put pressure on yourself because you got, like what you mentioned, you got payroll, you got people to feed, you've got a lot more responsibility. When I had Israel Whitley on the podcast, he's talked about pressure being a privilege, and he said he'd much rather the pressure of having to run a company than having to put than to struggling to pay rent and stuff like that. So I just wanted to get your take on your perspective around the pressure that you might put on yourself being a successful entrepreneur.
Well, I think if you're an entrepreneur and you're a bit ADHD like me, when you get bored, it's not a good space for people like me, right? When I'm bored, I'm just irritable. So I can have some of the lowest days of my life when I'm on holiday, if nothing's happening. So I like fizzing on something. So as long as it's not pressure where it's like, I can't pay the bills and that, as long as it's pressure as in this is going good I actually am happier under that space. And I think since the GFC and getting a butt kicked, I've conservatively grown and haven't taken massive risks. So it's never felt like risky or I'm going to lose everything, you know. So it's only been pressure as in, you know, like Christmas time we can have 2 shifts running and we've got like, you know, 10 to 15 pickers picking orders, and it's crazy. And I start waking up at 4 a.m. around Christmas time because, you know, obviously we do giftware. But I'm happier under that, you know. So I don't see it as a negative thing, the pressure. But I don't put myself in a place where I could lose my home or anything anymore.
Yeah.
I've always got a buffer, so I'm safe.
Yeah.
And I think that's a result of going through the GFC in 2008, 2009.
Yeah, that makes sense. And with stress, when you're under pressure, are you the sort of person that just has to deal with it directly, or do you skits out, bite your nails, freak out a bit? And because I think so many people handle pressure in stressful situations in different ways, right? Some people are just shit at it.
Yeah.
Some people better than others. Do you have any like go-to approaches to when things just feel like I've got 100 plates spinning at once?
Yeah.
Don't know where to start.
I don't know. I don't have like a formula or anything, but I mean, when things are full on, I try and make sure I keep healthy, you know, like by sleeping well and doing exercise. And even though I've got a V on the table here, my wife,
I didn't even know there was a V.
my wife won't be happy about that. I needed a little bit of a wake up.
I like how you turn the logo the other way as well,
yeah.
so no one can really know.
Promote that.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I'm under pressure, you know, I don't. Like, I remember once I was at a trade fair and one of our colleagues, I came around the corner and she was talking about me and she was laughing about, she was sort of saying, oh man, he's stressed out. Because, you know, when you do a trade fair, it's like 20 grand for 3 days. And it's like, there's a bit of pressure on because it could flop. And the more we do, the less pressure there is because it's not as important. It's important, but not like, and so, yeah, I mean, I definitely get stressed and stuff, but I don't know if I have any like direct like formulas to deal with that. I just sort of get through the patch and know that there's better times around the corner and look for that. You know, it's like at Christmas time, I'm always thinking, you know, in so many days we'll be heading off on our, you know, January holiday and on the caravan with the kids surfing and enjoying New Zealand.
Yeah,
so
nice.
Having those carrots to look forward to.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you seem like a really sort of cruisy, chill guy as well. So I think a lot of surfers are probably like that as well. It's just the mentality that you have trying to catch waves and getting humbled, eh?
Yeah, I mean, am I cruisy? And I don't know. I think I'm pretty like I'm not like laid back as in like sleepy or anything. Like I'm kind of, you know, I like to be just all go and
lots of
doing
energy.
Stuff, you know, like rushing from this thing to that. So it's kind of a balance of trying to like not be too manic and then being productive and just finding. Sometimes you feel like you're an anaesthetist to yourself, trying to find that balance of what makes you successful that day with being a husband, being a dad, being a friend, being a boss.
Yeah. With everything that you've learnt over time, is there anything, especially in the business context, is there anything that you would have done differently when you were just starting out?
So we have these 4 M's that are our principles for Moana Rd. And so one of them I said before was mandate. Another one is momentum. So any business, you want to be creating momentum. And I always say like getting a business going is like moving an oil tanker. So you imagine an oil tanker that's sitting at a dock. To get that thing moving is so hard. But once the oil tanker's on the sea and it's cruising along, you could put so much stuff in front of it and it wouldn't stop. The momentum carries on. So I feel like in business, you always want to be, like gaining momentum. And for 2 years when we started with those pitches, we weren't actually getting any momentum because a picture's not, if you get a picture for a good price, you don't tell your mates about it because you just want to go, oh, that was just something I picked up at a market.
True.
It's not a preach product.
True.
Whereas if you get some sunnies for a good price and you love them and there's 130 styles, you tell your mates, hey, these are great. I love these sunnies, you know. Like, you know, if a restaurant, you go to a good restaurant, you love it, it's a preach product, you tell your buddies. But with the art for 2 years, there was no momentum. It was just literally paying the bills and surviving, which was important because we needed to pay that those massive mortgages and then we had to live. But I think you always want to be doing products that is creating the momentum, moving the oil tanker forward. And for 2 years, I don't think we were getting any momentum. Apart from, I was learning what New Zealanders like as far as like, you know, like for example, we used to do these, had a photo of the Kia Ora Dairy in Featherston. and it was our biggest selling print. And so those images were momentum that we could then take into other products. But as far as just setting up pop-up shops and selling art, that's not going to create a long-term business.
True that. You also mentioned that Monopoly is another one of your sort of four whys. How did you describe them before?
The 4 M's.
The 4 M's.
Yeah,
the 4 M's. Not wise at all. Can you speak a bit more on Monopoly?
So, if you want to have real constant security in what you're doing in a business, you need to have some sort of a monopoly. And when I say monopoly, I don't mean you're the only telco in the country. Monopoly. I'm talking I feel like a brand is a monopoly. Like if you want Moana Rd sunnies, there's only one place you can get them in New Zealand. It's through us, right? We own Moana Rd sunnies. So brand is a good way to have a monopoly. So it's a different view of the word monopoly. Another thing is design. So when Mitty Grace Smith does her amazing contemporary Māori art and we turn it into a product, no one else can do that because we own that now, right? So if you're ever competing against, say you do those head torches, those LED head torches. I remember when I was first looking at things to import, and they were big. And the thing is, if you brought that in and it was a hit, you're gonna have Bunnings doing it, Kmart doing it, the warehouse doing it, because you don't control it. So it was really design and our ideas which creates a monopoly, and that creates the momentum. And anything you're doing in business, you've got to be creating the space around you where you have, because monopoly, you have a power really. And so really, we create a monopoly through our brand and our design, in which we, for a company our size, having 4 designers, we invest a lot in design, and that creates unique products. We're not competing with Kmart or the warehouse or farmers, because we're creating a really unique space.
That's a really key point there, I think. With and we've got a flickering light going on just behind us, so we'll just ignore that. But especially because you're selling things which can be quite similar to those of Kmart, farmers, etc. Has there been any? It'd be hard to compete with price wars and stuff because they're just so massive multinational companies, right? So you're saying the way in which you guys create the monopoly is by making almost really bespoke Kiwi designs.
So last summer we did our first range of puzzles, and so you can get a puzzle in heaps of shops in New Zealand, right? And it'll be something like the London Bridge or Eiffel Tower or something, global. So our 4 puzzles was the Kia Ora Dairy, a Mitty Grace Smith design. We hand painted 54 New Zealand fish, and it kind of looks like the old fish and chip shop poster as a puzzle. And we have one which is kind of as a kids one for with New Zealand animals like birds and all that. And so we had these 4 designs, and so by having these 4 designs, suddenly our puzzles aren't competing with the Eiffel Tower or the London Bridge because it's uniquely New Zealand, and so the price will be probably dearer because it's our own design, and so that's how we compete with those guys. We create something different. And I think people like that, and we're prolific with new products. We just had a trade fair a few weeks ago, and most of the companies didn't have really much new stuff. And we had 6 pages of a catalogue of brand new products that we developed between Christmas and the 5th of March. And so we just don't stop. We're always coming up with new all the time.
Back to that momentum piece that you mentioned earlier, right? Just keep on making that momentum, keep hammering.
And retailers know that. They know that they're going to get lots of new stuff with us. And so they're going to get fresh new stuff, and they know it's going to sell because we only bring it in if we get a mandate. Yeah.
What about the last M there, which is mahi?
I don't think there's many successful entrepreneurs who don't have a good work ethic, and to start off with, I was working so hard because I was teaching all day and then framing pictures till late at night, and then getting up at 5 o'clock and going to fruit and veg markets to sell the pictures. If you don't have the mahi, you're not going to get anywhere, and so that's what I learned off my dad. He's hardly had a Saturday off in my whole life. He's got amazing work ethic, and I think if you really want to get going, the phone's going, you just got to have that work ethic, and that Israel guy you had on here, he seemed like he's a pretty hard worker.
Yeah, he's a weapon.
I just don't think anyone's successful in business, unless they've got some amazing idea that's gone global, that someone else has bought the rights to. Most of the time they've got amazing work ethic. So, the mahi is so important
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about like work ethic and drive, how do you? Oh, no, so I'll turn that off. All good. Sorry, Katie. Talking about work ethic and drive, how do you balance that with work-life balance and looking after your family, being there for your kids?
Yeah.
Does it get very, very consuming? Where you're just a workaholic, working crazy hours, or do you feel like you got a bit better at that?
So at the start I was working really hard because I was trying to create an income, doing the teaching and get this thing going. But once Moana Rd got going, I feel like I've got a really good work-life balance. Like I don't like dream of driving Maseratis and Rolls Royces. For me, if I do well, it's having the ability and freedom to go. Like I've been learning to wing foil this summer, and I play golf, and I'm still playing rugby and surfing heaps, and the freedom's what I want. I don't want expensive assets, and so yeah, I have we don't work till like 10 at night or anything. But when we're at work, we head down, let's go. It's more the German work ethic rather than the Japanese. They always talk about Japanese who stay till 9, 10, 11 at night.
Yeah, that's right. And I've heard as well, it might be in Japan or China, where like napping is so normalized in workplace culture.
Yeah.
I had someone that worked over there, and he said throughout the day, it might be like 12 o'clock lunchtime, he'll look around and people would just be sleeping at their desks, but it's a sign of them working hard. It's like they've deserved a rest.
Yeah. To me, I hate inefficiency. Like I hate going on a trip and the wife will go, oh, no, we go back to get some gas. I'm like, nah, we're going forward. I just hate, and we're moving forward all the time. And so like when I've got my head down, I'm working hard. I'm looking at my watch, going, oh, the winds could be good for doing this, or it's gonna be sunny, and I love having those rewards of like going, I'm gonna go out and have a round of golf, or I'm gonna go for a surf or wing foil or whatever. And I work towards that. But so I'm never gonna like sit there till midnight, because I've got to be happy, because when I'm happy and enjoying life, I'm probably more creative with my ideas. And so, to me, it's really important to be just like frothing on what I'm doing. And that for me is like, I love getting outside and doing sport and enjoying life. Yeah.
It's a real fine balance, eh? I feel like so many successful business owners, just their life is work, and that becomes their identity.
Yeah.
And I guess it still is to a certain degree. Whatever work you do, you wanna get fulfillment out of it. You want to be passionate about it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. But it's not all of who I am. Like I always think at Christmas time it's quite interesting, because we have this intense month where we double our workforce, and we go through so much stock. But then I've got to put it down and pack the caravan and go, right now I'm focused on camping, hanging out with mates, surfing with my kids, and I literally have to put that down, put work down, and which I was fizzing on, and go, oh nah, now I'm fizzing on getting out in the longboards with the kids, or going for a surf, or that sort of stuff. So I think it's wisdom in life if you can go hard on your work and that, but then put it down and go, right now I'm going to be a mate, or I'm going to be a dad to my kids, and do other stuff, and get right into that and forget about the work, and just focus on other aspects of your life. Yeah,
totally. What does the future look like for Moana Rd? Let's think 10, 15 years down the track.
Yeah, so when I used to teach economics, and I remember year 11 economics, one of the goals of producers was satisficing, which means you get to a certain point, you're satisfied, and then you just kick back. And I think New Zealand businesses, a lot of New Zealand business people like that. They get they used to say the batch, the BMW and the boat. But no one wants BMW now. It'll be more like a Ranger, probably, not something. But anyway, you get the things you want, and then you kick back. And so I probably feel like that in some ways, that we've got everything we need. So what's the motivation to keep going hard? Like I'm about to go to China for 2 weeks, going around trade fairs. What's the motivation to go hard for 2 weeks? And for me, it's the fact that now it's a chance to give. So, I have a faith of a Christianity, and that's important to me, that, too much has been given, much is expected. So for now, it's about giving now, like paying it forward, and we've got enough to live. And I remember I was talking to a business person one day who said that he practices, what was the word? That, being satisfied with what you've got, not wanting more all the time. And so, and if you can do that, then you can give more and more. So, the guy who started Farmers Trading, he started giving 10% of his profits, and by the time he finished, he was giving 90% and
Wow.
keeping 10.
Wow.
And to me, that's a hero in business. You know,
Yeah.
that I'm not in business so I can have a massive Rolls Royce and houses all around the place, and that it's so you can give.
Yeah.
And
I feel like even Patagonia, like a massive example there. Didn't the founder recently? He did something crazy where he like has donated all of the earnings of the company to something around environmentalism or something like that. Like it's crazy stuff, eh? It's
there's
awesome.
been a few stories, like Warren Buffett,
Yep.
Zuckerberg, Gates. You know, Bill Gates, what a legend! Like you know, and that to me are the heroes in business, where they go, I've kicked butt and succeeded, and I'm going to give I think he gives his kids $1 million each or something, which is probably all they need. In other words, they'll ruin their lives.
A small loan of $1 million.
Yeah, well, I mean, it gets them a nice house, and you know that's good. But he's not going to give them like hundreds of millions and ruin their lives for money.
Yeah.
But then he's gone in and changed, you know, whole issues in the medical world and like eradicated polio, and like I love that. Like to me, that's my true heroes.
Yeah.
People who succeed in their area and then go and do something for others. Like
Yeah.
Bono's another one. You know, obviously a huge rock star, but has gone and positively affected so many people on this planet from his work with relieving debt and hunger and that. So, for me, it's not a case of going, all right, I'm satisfied, Paul's got a cool life, I'm going to go to Bali 4 times a year and have fun and that. It's going, I've got to keep pushing because the more I push, the more I can give.
I like that. That's really nice. I feel like as well in 2023, like to be a viable business, you have to have some sort of community spirit, or you got to have a deeper why than you probably had to of 20 years ago when it was all about profit.
Yeah.
Now
totally.
so much, you know, it's like, cool, you sell me sunglasses, but you know, what are you doing for the community? What are you doing for the environment? I feel like that's the new generation of consumers coming along and putting a lot more pressure on businesses to adopt more probably social policies. So I love stuff like social enterprises. There's one of my favorite is Thank You. What they call Thank You. It used to be Thank You Water.
Yeah.
Don't know if you've heard of them before. It's this young guy, Daniel Flynn, who started it up, and he was doing a university assignment where he was researching about third world countries, and he came across this article, and it told a story of a young girl who would have to travel like 10 miles or something to go collect fresh water for her tribe, and then had to walk all the way back and give it to her.
Yeah.
And she collected, a few buckets of water one day, brought it back into her town and her village, and that water was contaminated, and she ended up killing some of her, some of her family members and stuff. And this guy, Daniel, young Australian guy, he was just like, fuck, it just brought him to tears. So he sort of disrupted the the plastic drink water bottle industry and made a business model where they gave 100% of their profits to fund water wells in third world countries.
Yeah.
And now they do nappies, they do music bars, you name it, they do it.
Yeah.
And it's still around that business, the social enterprise business model of giving 100% of their profits back towards the social good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that sort of thing. And that's why we want, and what we can do a lot with just even with our products, because we manufacture and we can bring it in and give it to companies. You can make such a difference by giving them. It doesn't cost us necessarily that much, but to them they're getting heaps of stuff for the money that we're giving. So we've got this new strategy coming out where basically our sunglasses, we're slowly giving a model over to different charities. So a friend of mine runs Te Moana Rd Trust, which it's about helping families with special needs. So on the side on the stand, there'll be a little wooden thing, and it says $2 from the sunglass will go towards the Te Moana Rd Trust. And then we've got Tiri Matangi, the bird sanctuary in the Hauraki Gulf, another model, they got theirs, and we've got the Live for More, and we've got, and it's a way of showing New Zealanders when they go and look at our sunglasses that they care about wildlife, they care about families with special needs, they care about underprivileged kids. It shows that we do love New Zealand. We're not just going, we're just shouting about it. We're actually going, if you buy these sunnies, $2 are going to that, $2 going to that, $2 going to that.
Yeah, that's huge. That's awesome.
And that's our way of competing with Quicksilver and Ray-Ban and these big brands. They don't, they may care about New Zealand, but they probably don't, New Zealand's not really on their radar. It's just a little branch somewhere off in the South Pacific. Whereas I'm living here and I love this place and I want to see funds and product going to people who need it, and I think that's our way to compete with those global brands.
Yeah, Yeah.
Because it's my backyard, it's not their backyard.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Paul, it's been such a good time chatting with you. Thanks for jumping on. Before we finish with some quick fire questions, where can people keep in touch with you and the good work of Moana Rd?
So on our website, moanard.co.nz, ROAD. We're on Instagram and Facebook. So follow us on there. And, and you'll probably see us, we've got stores in every corner of New Zealand, like from Kaitaia to Invercargill. You're never too far from a Moana Rd stockist. It's small of the town. Like we've got stockists on Stewart Island, Chatham Islands.
Actually, Stewart Island, true.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
In Oban. So, it's almost like the smaller the town, the more likely you'll see it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
That's awesome. If you're not close to some Moana Rd sunnies, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Or you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Cool. And we'll chuck some links into the description of the show, wherever you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify. Moving to some quick fire questions. What brings you true happiness?
I love getting outdoors in New Zealand and doing sport with people that I love, spending time with people. Like last weekend, we were up at Taranaki surfing some point breaks up there with some mates, and the sun was shining, and three of my daughters up there surfing, and I just love New Zealand. Like I really am passionate about getting out there and enjoying New Zealand, and snowboarding, surfing, golf, whatever. Just love. I'm going off to China in a few days. I'm going to be in these dirty, great big cities with glass towers and speed trains, and I'm like, it's like I've got to hold my breath for 2 weeks because I just want to get back to being in New Zealand because I love this place. I really do.
Advice you wish you knew about when you were younger?
Oh gosh. Advice. I guess that thing about the momentum in business. Making sure you're always, whatever you're doing, it's got a future and it's heading in a direction, and it's not just a quick buck. You don't just want to be a barrow boy selling apples, trying to beat the guy next to you. You're doing something where you're creating that momentum. That's for me a big lesson I've learned in business.
Nice. What does legacy mean to you?
When I die, I want people to go, that guy, was a great dad, was a great friend, ran that business, but loved people because he gave. He was a giver, I want people. No one cares about how if you die you're worth 300 million or whatever, but they want to know that you gave back. Too much has been given, much is expected. I've had a great upbringing and education and great people in my life, so I want to be known as a giver.
That's super nice, man. Business advice to somebody thinking about starting their own business. One piece of advice, a gold nugget here.
Don't be afraid to dip your toe all the time, to try things, and don't think, look for the way of being able to do it on the cheap. Like you don't have to have millions of dollars to start businesses. You can, some people could argue that, there's these big global brands and you can't compete against Ray-Ban or Oakley's, right? Well, we've got a few pairs of sunnies and we sold them and we are competing with them and we'll be taking their market share, So don't ever feel like because you're little, you don't have a chance to have a crack. Because there's always a space and there's always a gap, and just give it a little go. Import a few things, design a few things, make a few little things, and you might try 10 things and fail at 8. What is the Tesla guy? What's his name?
Elon Musk.
He says make mistakes quickly. I like that. The mistake's not bad. It just means you're getting closer to finding the success.
Yeah, great take. If you could change one thing in New Zealand, what would this be?
I would love to say, I feel it's really sad that sometimes it can only be the wealthy, middle, upper class New Zealanders who are out there enjoying New Zealand. Like, if you go up the mountain skiing or you can be at these nice beaches. And that's one thing I feel like I always want to have. I feel like every New Zealander has the right to swim on Mount Wanganui Beach or ski Aotearoa or, swim in Lake Taupō. So, I hate those barriers for people who can't get to those spots, and I like to see all New Zealanders loving New Zealand. Like, you're watching an American TVs and there were these massive houses right on the beach, and you always think, how did the public get to the beach with that Hollywood star's got that house on the beach? Like, I hate that. I love the fact that our spaces are for everyone.
What do you believe is the main thing that is holding back young people in New Zealand?
I think I heard a stat the other day that young people are socialising 30% less than they were 10 years ago, and I feel like young people are so connected, but then they're not connected, and they're on their screens all the time. You know, we didn't have screens when we were young, virtually on the phone, and we organised a game of backyard cricket or soccer or whatever. We were way more social, and I feel like, you know, true joy comes from connecting with people, and so if I could do something, I'd smash all the phones and go back to phones on the wall.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's so much positivity that comes out of people getting together in their communities, and like, you know, like for example, me and you were in the local rugby club, and people love it. You know, you don't have to be good at the thing, but you're just getting there and you're meeting community. And I feel like people now need an excuse to get together, and video games and screens and phones are just a curse, I feel, in a lot of ways to our society.
Completely agree. Awesome. Paul, absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you.
No worries.
Cheers.
You've been good.
Cheers.